watching pornography destroys your brain in 4 very specific ways, and you may not have even realized it. In this video, I'm going to explain them to you, and I'm going to show you how to rewire your brain as quickly as possible. My name is Sathiya Sam. I'm a men's transformation coach, a former university researcher, and an author, and I've spent the last 6 years of my life helping men quit pornography. So there's actually over 300 established research papers that demonstrate the changes to the brain that I'm going to explain to you when you watch pornography. And there's actually way more than 4, but these are the 4 ways that you need to be the most aware of, because they also give us clues into the solutions for you to rewire your brain. The first way that porn destroys your brain is desensitization. So you may have noticed that the things that you watch now and the things that your brain is looking for is different than the kind of content you used to watch. In relative terms, the content you used to watch is probably a bit more vanilla. It's a bit more plain. But what happens is your brain gets desensitized. In other words, your brain needs more intense stimulation or more frequent stimulation or both to get that same feeling that it first had when you were starting to watch pornography. This process builds a tolerance, and if it lasts long enough, eventually you start to develop erectile dysfunction, you start to watch very obscure and niche kind of genre content, and instead of just watching things on a screen, you may start to seek in-person experiences. All of this is because your brain is getting desensitized. The second thing that happens is called hypofrontality. So right here is the part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex. And this part is what makes us human. This is what allows us to think at a higher level, make executive decisions, and it sort of gives us our personality and our sense of self. Hypofrontality means that you have less or reduced frontality. In other words, this part of your brain that makes you human and allows you to think long term and be true to yourself, it starts to lose circulation. That part of your brain starts to become less active. And so you become more after instant gratification, you lose your sense of self-esteem, and you're not able to think as executively or as long-term as you would if your brain was at a healthy level. The second thing that happens to your brain is hypofrontality. So look, you have this part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, the PFC. And the PFC is what makes you and I human. It's where we learn to think long term, it's what allows us to have a sense of self, and it's what allows us to delay gratification. This is literally what makes us such a great and successful species. Hypofrontality is when you have reduced activity in this part of your brain. So what that means is lower self-esteem, it means more instant gratification, more short-term reward seeking, and it also means that you don't make decisions as effectively or as sharply as you maybe once did. And I hear that from a lot of my clients. They're experiencing brain fog, or, they're not as sharp. I mean, we work with a lot of high performers, so they're still doing okay, but they know they could be doing better. And it's because pornography has caused their brains to experience hypofrontality. The third thing that happens to your brain is a reduced stress response. So when your brain is functioning optimally, it can actually handle pretty high levels of stress, and it adapts, it learns to cope, and it allows you to continue with life even amidst great stressors. People who have watched a lot of pornography have a reduced capacity for this. They don't have the same adaptation, they can't respond as quickly, and they start to get bogged down by stress a lot more easily. And the fourth way that porn destroys your brain is sensitization. Now, you may remember that the first thing in our list was desensitization, and that's where you start to kind of build up a tolerance, so you need to watch more intense stuff or watch more frequently, that kind of thing. Sensitization is something a little bit different, okay? We're talking about cues and cravings that are triggered by things that aren't actually sexual in nature. So when I was addicted to pornography, an open laptop on my table in my basement bedroom, that was like an instant trigger. Anytime I saw that, my brain would start to develop these cues, and I would start to think about pornography. It could be that sometimes you see an object or you see a person who reminds you of someone that you watch, but generally the point is there are ordinary parts of your life that to you, they cause you to think about pornography, even though to the typical person, they wouldn't cause any of those cravings or any of those triggers. So these are the 4 ways that porn destroys your brain. And as you can see, this is probably starting to explain some of the behaviors that you've been experiencing. But The research doesn't stop here. In fact, one of the greatest discoveries in neuroscience in the last 35 years is that your brain is plastic. Okay, no, it's not made of plastic. What that means is your brain can change. And brains that are even as old as 70 and 80 years old still have the ability to adapt and to lose bad habits and to rewire new habits into their hardwiring. So the bottom line is, no matter how much pornography has destroyed your brain, you can rewire it. So let's talk real quick about what it would look like for you to rewire your brain and reverse these effects. The first thing to understand is that in as little as 90 days, your brain can actually look very different. If you are watching pornography with regularity and you're able to go about 3 months without watching porn, your brain will look different. You will have more circulation back to the prefrontal cortex, and some of these other factors, the desensitization, the sensitization, those things are going to start to reduce. Now, they don't necessarily vanish in 3 months. It can take longer depending on your methods and your process and how well you're executing on them. But generally speaking, anywhere from 2 to 3 months, your brain's looking very different. Now, there's even better news. The research would suggest that in as quickly as 21 days, your brain can start to unlearn. So if it's become very dependent on pornography and you've been watching it really regularly, if you can hit about the 21-day mark, your brain is going to start to recognize, okay, we're not doing things the way we used to. I need to change. And it's going to start rewiring itself in a different way that doesn't require pornography the same way that it used to. So that's pretty cool. Now, there's a catch to all of this, okay? Because you can't just hit the mark and expect your brain to change. In fact, I've seen some people try to bug the system. So they just kind of white-knuckled their way through for 21 days. They're like, awesome, I'll just muster up the willpower. 21 days, I can make it, and then my brain will change. But every day they just think, I can't watch pornography today. I hope I don't watch pornography today. And literally, those 21 days are completely occupied by the threat of watching pornography. So even though you're not watching it, your brain still isn't getting the chance to rewire. So we need 21 days and then we need 90 days where you are actually relaxed, where your brain is not thinking about pornography, and you are concentrated on way more important things. So what I recommend, and if you were a client, this is actually one of the first things I would have you do, is build a vision board. What does your porn-free life actually look like? See, you need to start getting focused on things that are not related to pornography at all. And if you start to become obsessed with your porn-free life, that's really going to drive a lot of good decision making, better behaviors, and it's going to give you some motivation and some incentive for you to persist in those moments where you might feel weak. The other thing that I recommend to hit these milestones is to have some guidance along the way. So the fact you're watching this video is amazing. Having people kind of walk you through the process goes a really long way. And it can be an expert, a guide, a coach, a therapist, whatever it is. Having some professional guidance along the way keeps you focused for 3 months. And 3 months doesn't sound like much, but when you've been watching pornography for years and years and your brain is wired a certain way, having that concentrated guidance for just a focused period of time can go a really long way in the rewiring process. Now, the last thing you need to know about rewiring your brain is that a circuit in your brain can only change when it's active. So really think about that. In other words, you watching this content is so awesome. It's kind of like putting bullets in a gun. But what actually pulls the trigger is taking action. So you can't just watch content and then your brain changes. But the next time you're tempted, the next time that you fall into an old pattern or an old behavior and you catch yourself and you do something different, that's what actually rewires your brain. The circuit has to be active first before you can change it. What that means is you need to be prepared. So have a little plan in place. The next time that you're tempted, the next time that your brain starts to get those cues and those cravings, whatever your patterns are, have a plan for the next time I experience this. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to close my laptop. I'm going to shut off my device. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to call a friend. I'm going to put on the Spotify playlist. There's no right or wrong here, but having a plan goes a really long way to ensuring that you're prepared, number one, but number two, that when that circuit is active, that circuit that's trying to get you to watch pornography like you used to, you're able to give it an alternative option and rewire your brain in the process. So I want to hear from you. I would actually love to know, what are some strategies or some specific tools that you've used that have helped you in recovery? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.